After the Chicago Cubs' dominant win last night against Detroit Tigers, they will face them one more time to try to take the series before they head off on the road again. But looking at last night's game, and especially David Peterson and the way he pitched, has me asking, should the Cubs go back to the well again and get another starting pitcher from the Mets? And also, we're going to show some love to my man, Imanaga, because he has been on a heater lately. Hopefully, he can continue. We'll talk about all that and more right after this. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, your number one spot for all things Chicago Cubs. Hey, listen, I'm your host, Mike Jones. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Hey, listen, if this is your first time watching this, make sure that you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, leave a comment below. Get into the conversation. We love to have people talking in here about what they think the Chicago Cubs should do, especially with the trade deadline just mere weeks away. I'm excited to announce the trade deadline is actually on my birthday. So I'm definitely excited. I'm taking a day off from work. Either I'll be at Wrigley or I'll be right here reporting to you every single move that happens. So with that being said, guys, listen, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. But yeah, man, go ahead and wave that W flag, guys. Listen, the Chicago Cubs once again rebound from the Monday night loss and go ahead and demolish the Detroit Tigers. That game wasn't even a game. By the seventh inning, the Tigers already had position players in Zach McKinstry pitching, which pissed PCA off, which was hilarious, actually. But outside of that, man, like I said, the Chicago Cubs really had themselves a game, and it was anchored by one David Peterson. David Peterson in this game literally carried the Chicago Cubs. Looked great, even though he did have traffic across on the base path from time to time. For the most part, what did he do? The wind was blowing in, and he was able to keep the ball in the park. Did not give up a bunch of home runs, did not do anything to hurt himself, but he literally put himself in the position to win the game. David Peterson literally went 6 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 0 earned runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts on 94 pitches, 58 of those being strikes. That dropped his ERA down to 5.97. So listen, David Peterson in this game did what he had to do to ensure that the Chicago Cubs got the victory. They are 57-44 now on the season. So again, guys, like I said, man, 13 games above 500, not much more you can ask for from the Chicago Cubs team. They are a good baseball team. Now, how do you become a great baseball team? Well, that's the question here, and that's what Jed Hoyer has to answer at the trade deadline. And one of those things that made me think about this was watching David Peterson last night and thinking to myself, well, man, if we could make him look this good, what if we got the Mets opening day starter? What if we got the guy that literally has been amazing? And shout out to my man Blake Cowell. Again, he is somebody who brought this to my attention. But guys, I want us to think about Clay Holmes of the Mets. He is somebody that is able to do exactly what the Chicago Cubs need him to do. So does it make sense? I know everybody's been talking about Freddie Peralta. I know everybody thinks like, well, Freddie was with Craig for so long in Milwaukee. They know each other very well. They have a relationship. Freddie just makes sense. Freddie has kind of been on a down spiral. And I'm not saying that Chicago can't he can't have a resurgence of Chicago and be good. But to me, honestly, I like Clay Holmes. There's more there's more control on his contract. And again, he's somebody that's going to bring a lot to the table. So let's look at the stats on Clay Holmes, and let's look at what he brings to the Chicago Cubs should they trade for him. So they've already added David Peterson, but if they're serious about winning the NL Central and making a deep postseason run, adding another veteran starter shouldn't be off the table. Holmes checks several boxes for the Chicago Cubs. He's been one of the best starters in baseball this season. After converting from reliever to starter with the Mets, Holmes has exceeded expectations in 2026. He has a 4-4 record, a 2.39 ERA, and 9 starts. He's excellent ground ball profile. He limits hard contact consistently. And these numbers, guys, just aren't a fluke. Holmes has always possessed elite movement on that sinker. As a starter, he's simply been able to lean on that pitch over multiple innings just to get outs. And then look at this. His pitch mix fits perfectly with Wrigley Field. So Holmes is one of the best ground ball pitchers in baseball. His arsenal includes a 94 to 97 mile per hour sinker. He's got that sweeper. He's got a slider. He's got a changeup. He's got a 4-seam fastball. That sinker generates weak contact and double play balls, which is especially valuable at Wrigley Field when the wind is blowing out. So instead of worrying about home runs, Holmes gets hitters pounding the ball into the dirt. Again, guys, let me tell you something. With the elite defense behind him, I could absolutely see Clay Holmes being somebody that the Chicago Cubs look at as a valuable piece moving down the stretch, somebody that can actually maybe start playoff games for this team. That's right. We need to start thinking about that. Who would we start in playoff games? Who can we trust to come in and dominate for this team? And without Ben Brown and without some of the other pieces that we had in the past, listen, the Chicago Cubs are going to have to figure it out. Now, again, what does he do? So, again, he would balance the rotation also. So, imagine a postseason rotation that has Edward Cabrera, that has Matthew Boyd, that has Clay Holmes, that has Shota Imanaga or Jameson Tyone, and David Peterson. I mean, like I said, that's not a bad playoff rotation there. Like I said, you can absolutely win a series if Edward Cabrera is right, Matthew Boyd is right, and then you send Clay Holmes up there also. You're forcing opponents' lineups to adjust every night. Different arm angles, different pitch mixes, different looks. That's exactly how playoff rotations wear hitters down. And again, what's some of the best parts about Clay Holmes? Like I said, he ain't just a rental. Holmes has a 2027 player option, making him more than a 2-month acquisition if things work out. That added control could make him especially appealing to the Cubs, although it would also increase the prospect cost. But again, hey, the Chicago Cubs are in desperate need of pitching. So the biggest concern, well, there are two. Health is the first one. Holmes has recently dealt with an injury and is working his way back through rehab. The Cubs would need confidence that he's healthy before surrendering meaningful prospects. So again, like I said, with a team that's already depleted with injury, this could be the biggest deterrent from the Chicago Cubs making a move for Clay Holmes, is the simple fact that, hey, dude's already been injured once this year. The last thing we need is to trade prospects, huge prospects, for Clay Holmes to the Mets to turn around and find ourselves without him because he's injured. We've already got multiple players that have been on the injured list and are still on the injured list, some out for the season. And then let's also look at the prospect cost. So because Holmes has pitched so well and isn't a pure rental, the Mets would likely ask for a significant return for him, because probably aren't trading, maybe Ramirez type of talent for him. But New York could ask for a package centered around a top 10 organizational prospect plus additional pieces. So, I mean, like I said, if it were me, I would look at them and say, hey, how would you feel about Kevin Alcantara? And like I said, and surrendering a deal that is surrounded around Kevin Alcantara, somebody that can come into your organization, somebody that can play outfield, somebody that can give you at bats, somebody with speed. And again, somebody like that, So that's who I would look at centering a deal around, and seeing if the Mets would bite on that, on the prospect of what Kevin Alcantara could become. Maybe a O'Neal Cruz or Ellie De La Cruz type player for the Mets. I mean, you sell them on that type of potential. Again, he's a prospect, so it's always selling the potential and what he could potentially be. So we'll see what happens with that. But then we also asked the question: would he fit Craig Counsell? And guys, let me just tell you, absolutely. Counsell loves pitchers who throw strikes, work efficiently, keep the defense engaged, generate ground balls, and pitch deep into games. Holmes checks every one of those boxes. The Cubs' infield defense with Alex Bregman, Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner, and Michael Busch is built to convert ground balls into outs, making Holmes an especially natural fit for this club. And honestly, if I'm Clay Holmes, I'm praying to God that I get traded from the Mets to the Cubs. Like that would be like leaving Hell's Gates to go to heaven's open door. And I mean, like I said, it will be an amazing time for him here in Chicago as long as he can keep the ball out of the stands. Uh, so again, Clay Holmes may not be the biggest name on the trade market, but he might be one of the smartest. He's transformed himself into an all-star uh, from an all-star closer into a legitimate starting pitcher with a sub 250 ERA. His heavy sinker would play beautifully in front of one of baseball's best defensive infields, and he wouldn't just help the Cubs get to October. He could be a weapon once they get there. If Jed Hoyer is looking for an under-the-radar move that raises this team's ceiling without chasing the most expensive ace available, Clay Holmes deserves to be near the top of this list. So, again, like I said, and just an additional part of this, you guys got to watch Clay Holmes because recent reports indicate the struggling Mets are listening on Holmes, and multiple contenders have already been connected to him ahead of the trade deadline. The Cubs believe his transition to the rotation is sustainable. They may have to move quickly to stay ahead of the market on this one. So again, like I said, I think that Clay Holmes is absolutely somebody that Cubs fans need to keep their eyes on. He's somebody that absolutely could be a piece for the Chicago Cubs moving forward. So we'll keep looking into that. Now, I also want to talk about another piece that has been monumental for the Chicago Cubs over the last month or so. Now, I want to talk about Shota Imanaga. Now, Shota is beginning to look like himself again, and this is important for the Chicago Cubs. One of the biggest reasons the Cubs remain in the playoff race is because Shota Imanaga has quietly begun turning his season around, and I do mean quietly. For much of 2026, fans focused on his win-loss record, but the statistic doesn't tell the whole story. The underlying numbers have remained strong, and lately the results are finally starting to match the process. The biggest statement came against the Minnesota Twins when Imanaga delivered 7 shutout innings, allowing just 6 hits, walking 1, and striking out 4, and earning his first victory since June 24th. It wasn't just a win. It was the kind of outing the Cubs desperately needed from a veteran at the front end of the rotation. Now, again, you guys say, well, Mike, this is just one game. Why are you hugging us over one game? Well, the Cubs don't need Shota Imanaga to throw a complete game every 5th day. They need him to give them 6 or 7 quality innings, keep the bullpen fresh, stop losing streaks, pitch like the veteran leader of the rotation. And recently, guys, that's exactly what he's been doing. The numbers actually support this too. Even after a rocky stretch earlier this season, Imanaga still owns a 3.91 ERA, a 1.11 whip, 109 strikeouts, and opponents continue to have difficulty creating consistent traffic against him because of his elite command. That whip is especially impressive. A 1.11 whip means he's allowing barely 1 base runner per inning. Pitchers who consistently keep runners off the base give themselves a chance to win almost every time they take the mound, which is something that we didn't see out of Imanaga when he was struggling. And even last year, Imanaga, when he's walking guys and the base path gets crowded, is usually when he gives up the big long ball, and it is terrible. Earlier in the 2025 season, when Imanaga was struggling with the long ball, he was just giving up 1 home run. And I mean, and it could be multiple home runs, but it'll be just one run. However, when you have 2 and 3 people on base because you walked them and then you give up the home run, well, that's when it becomes a problem. And that's what we saw from Imanaga from late 2025 and early 2026. However, since he's back, not allowing runners on base. Guys, listen, that is when Imanaga becomes deadly again. And again, the eye test is matching the numbers. Over the last several starts, we've seen better fastball command, more confidence throwing his splitter in key counts, fewer innings where one mistake snowballs into 3 or 4 runs, and more weak contact instead of loud barrels. That's vintage Shota Imanaga, folks. He's attacking hitters instead of nibbling. So, why is Shota Imanaga important? Well, you guys know. I don't have to tell you. You watch the games like I watch the games. Matthew Boyd has dealt with injuries. The Cubs have asked younger starters to carry significant innings. The bullpen has been leaned on heavily. That makes Shota Imanaga even more valuable. Every time he pitches into the 7th inning, he's saving the bullpen for the rest of the series. Those outings have ripple effects over an entire week. So here is what I would tell you guys. This isn't about Shota becoming a Cy Young candidate overnight. It's about becoming the dependable starter the Cubs expected him to be. Championship teams need pitchers who stop losing streaks, give their offense a chance to breathe, and consistently hand the ball to the bullpen with the lead. And that's exactly what Shota Imanaga has started doing again. If this is the version Shota Imanaga is here to stay, it changes everything about the Cubs. Suddenly, Jed Hoyer doesn't have to chase an expensive ace at the deadline. Instead, he can focus on adding another quality starter and add to the bullpen. A locked-in Imanaga gives the Cubs a legitimate postseason weapon, and over the last few starts, he's shown signs that he's becoming that pitcher once again. So listen, I want to know from you guys, what are your thoughts on Clay Holmes? Should the Chicago Cubs absolutely look at potentially trading for Clay Holmes? And I need to know from you guys, what are your thoughts on Shota Imanaga? Have you seen the same things I'm seeing, or do you still think we're far off from seeing the very best of Shota Imanaga? Listen, that's my time for today. I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe so that you never miss an episode of Chicago Cubs Central. And until next time, go Cubs, go.
Thank you for watching another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, the #1 spot for all Chicago Cubs content. Remember to like, share, subscribe for more Cubs content.